Hello and welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell and with me,
Jared Lovelady.
and we are here to talk about all things creative. And today we have a topic we wanted to dive into to discuss something that I don't know. I think a lot of I don't know if other authors have considered this explicitly, but I know I've heard it from other authors, and it's the topic centers around how much of yourself do you put into your writing. So it's really a question of how autobiographical is. It doesn't matter, you're writing a story about a dragon, writing a story about knights and knights, or uh, creating a historical fiction, or detective mystery murder, whatever. How much of it is autobiographical? How much of it is actually you you're embedding your personality into what you're writing?
Yeah. Not only your story, but your characters themselves. How much of you bleeds through into your character?
Yeah. Well, and I not just into your character. So one, I think there's two different questions there. One is how much of your direct personality is meshed into the different characters you create. And then the other piece is how much of your life experience in some form or another has manifested itself into the story that you're telling, the events of the story that you're telling. Um, there's a couple books that I've read recently. I won't say the names of the books because uh, they, in parts of the stories, they kind of go down some emotional paths, some traumatic events,
Mm-hmm.
stories that happened. And in speaking with the authors, I reached out independently, and had like little chats on the side with two authors in particular, and both of them were like, yeah, these are things that I used this as therapy for trauma. And the way they did that was, the names have been changed to protect
Yeah.
the innocent, kind of thing, but their trauma is told in the events of the characters written into the story. Like, this is how I remember it happening. And now this character experiences exactly what I experienced. And it's now part of their story. And for them, it's therapeutic to get that trauma out there. I'm like, I wonder how much of that is actually in different stories that authors write. I don't know about you, but I haven't slain any dragons recently.
No, not recently, but
It's probably been a few years since I've committed any murders, or or fire firebombed a planet in order to destroy the overlords that were there. I haven't done that in a while. So if I wanted to write any of that into my story, I'm going to have to pull out some journals or notebooks or something to recall that. But not everybody has to do that with the experiences that they write about.
yeah.
So I don't know, Jared, what do you think from your perspective, writing your personality into characters? It's going to go down that pathway a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think some of your own character comes out in all of your characters because it's you and it's coming out of your head. So you, even though, like, I know I try to think when I'm writing, okay, how would Sandra think in this situation, or how would Toara react? But that's still going to be formed by my brain and how I would react, or how I think they would react.
Yeah.
Um,
Is any of it like, do you see yourself in, well, this is how like, going back, looking over writing in the book that we're writing right now, or other writing that you've done, um, can you go back and say, well, I think in this perspective, I actually wrote, this is how I would react in this situation, versus Well, I don't think I would react that way, but I think this character would react that way.
Um, I think I do both. Um, and I think part of it is, maybe it's subconscious, maybe it's intentional, but I want to put a little bit of myself into my writing.
Yeah.
And I want my character to, I want to experience their world as much as they are. And part of doing that is getting in the mindset of your character and giving your character the mindset of yourself. Um,
Yeah. For me, I think as you're sharing your perspective on that, I think I was kind of thinking about uh, like you said, there's always going to be some bit of yourself because you can't separate yourself from whatever's coming out of your head or your mouth or
yeah.
um, someone who's a method actor, you know, well, that's them playing how they perceive whatever that role is.
Mm-hmm.
And so going down that train of thought a little bit, it's like when we wrote Teth, and he's like psychopath, sociopath, crazy kind of guy.
Yeah.
Well, that's still trying to write from a perspective of, well, how does someone who I see who has this personality, how would they react? How would they act? What would they do, think, say, feel? But it's still coming from the perspective of, well, this is what I think this personality would do, think, say, and feel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't studied somebody with that personality I haven't studied different personalities to say, well, here's how an introvert acts. Here's how an extrovert acts. Here's how, they have like what is it? Like the IJT, whatever, different
Yeah. I don't know what that's called, but I know what you're talking about.
I haven't studied any of that to be like, well, let's see. I think Cassandra is, an IJ and Tawara is a T, or, whatever. I don't even remember what the letters are.
Yeah.
And there's different things out there that have different acronyms that go along with them. But going back after having written some of the characters, we could probably map out what kind of personality we think they have.
Yeah.
But I haven't intentionally said, well, this person has this type of personality. But we have said, we know what Corvin should be like. We know what Captain how we know what we think.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked out loud with each other about, well, this is how Corvin acts. And this is how Ethrin acts. And this is how Tawara acts. And how they would think, feel, talk, react, whatever. But we've never said they fall into this personality category, whatever.
No, we haven't. Maybe we should.
I was just thinking, like, maybe we should be doing this. How would it make them better? I don't know. Would it make us better at being able to write them?
Might. Especially some of those that are really out of our wheelhouse, so to speak, like Teth or Corvin.
That's the question: are they out of our wheelhouse? Are we? It's like, I don't know. If somebody reads Teth and analyzes and says, "This is really accurate," and then they say, what did you study to come up with this personality? And we say, we just pulled it out of our top, off the top of our heads. Are they going to go, maybe here's the card of this person, you should call them. I don't know.
It's always possible, but yeah.
But no, I think, excuse me, I think trying to write different characters and different characters' personalities, maybe that's a limiting factor in, like, if you read a spy novel. The spy novel or private, super investigator or whatever, they're frequently written completely from one person's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
even if you're going to get dialogue and interaction from other people, but they're almost always from one person. And there's a lot of different stories that are exclusively from one character's perspective. And I don't know if I would say it's the majority of books, but there are a lot out there.
Yeah. First person stories are all, it's pretty much always the first, the
Yeah.
same.
But even third person stories, even, in fact, the two books that I had thought about, they're written in third person, but they reference, so and so did this and they thought this and everything, but you only get to see inside the main character's head. You only get to experience the main character's feelings, experiences, emotions, reactions, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through that, I'm like, well, how much of that individual personality is completely the author's personality? But on the flip side of that, could it also be the case of, well, I am totally not this way, but I want my character to be not me.
Yeah.
And so this is, if I were somebody other than me, this is what I would be.
Yeah. I do that some. I'm a fairly shy person, and I like to write a character that's more outgoing and more talkative, and so yeah, I totally see that.
Yeah. I mean, almost going back to that method actor thing, or even just actresses in general. You see interviews with people that are very famous, and they're like, well, I'm actually a really shy person. I'm very private. I'm very whatever. And you see some of the shows that they're in, and you're like, that's completely, that's totally not you as an actor or an actress.
Yeah.
But it's well, that's not me. I was, Joe McClane during that time. And Joe McClane has this personality. And so that's the personality that has to be portrayed. And Joe McClane will do this and this and this and this and this. And so that's what Joe McClane does. That's not what I do. Like, but you're the one doing it. Like, yeah. But I was Joe McClane then. I wasn't,
Yeah.
me. So
there's a lot of study involved. Actors will study personality types or other characters, or
Yeah, I wonder though. I wonder how much, because I haven't asked anybody this. We haven't asked anybody this question so far. Of, do you study different personalities? Do you do research into, research into profiles? Do you maybe even create profiles on character types of this type of character typically acts in this way, especially if they're, X, Y, or Z type of personality. And then you write the character to that personality and to, develop their history, their backstory. I mean, look at D&D.
Mm-hmm.
When you develop a D&D character and you're like, well, this person is they're a dragon, whatever, they're a half elf or a halfling or whatever. And then you come up with a backstory of, these are the experiences they had and the difficult life that they went through. And this is what led them to become this special mage or to develop their skills with the bow or the sword. This is why this barbarian is so adamant that, about anytime there's an orc, there's no question, slay the orc, period. Doesn't matter what scenario it's in, if he sees an orc, he's gonna rush in. Well, there's this whole backstory behind that. And then you build up this character, including, and here are character traits that this Balthazar, the magician, these are the traits, his character traits that he goes by, and you're gonna act those out as Balthazar.
Yeah.
But we haven't asked anybody. I haven't even talked to anybody, even individually, of, have you done that for the characters in your book that you're writing? you know,
Yeah.
or books you have written.
I think as far as personality development, I do some role play, and there's two ways to do it. You can create a bio and have a backstory and a person, and that determines their personality, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
Or you can, I don't, freestyle isn't the right word for it, but you come up with a very vague background
Yeah.
and for your character, and then you let them develop as you go, and as you go, different, each session builds on,
It's kind of ad-libbing
yeah,
the character.
and the character develops over time. And I think, at least for us, I think a good part of what we've done has been that second way. As we write, the character develops not only in the story but in our minds.
Yeah.
And
I think with some extent, like when we brought Teth into the story, it was this is what Teth's personality is going to be.
yeah,
And then we had to write the story to fit like the things that he does, even though we need him to go through certain events, how he does them and the way he interacts has to align with who he is from a prior definition.
mm-hmm.
But a lot of Tawara, Athandra, as we come up with a new scenario and then we have to go, well, how do they react in this situation?
Yeah. And the
And
more we write them, I've noticed, the more we constrain ourselves to,
yeah,
okay, no, they went through this. They have to, that's going to affect them this way, and they're going to act more like this, or, you know. So as they've developed, we've constrained our writing to fit the personalities that have developed so thus far. And it also affects, okay, how is their personality going to develop as we write this new thing?
yeah. And I wonder how much of that as we go through, or how much so far, and looking to the future to new characters that are coming on the way in book 2 and in book 3, etc. Because we have a lot in the works. How much of that is us?
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, it's 100% from us, but how much of it is, well, that's exactly how I would react, versus, well, I wouldn't react like that at all, but Athandra would,
Mm-hmm.
or Captain Ethrin would, or pick any character, they would do this. So it's an interesting concept, I think, and I'm curious with all of the different books that I've read, different series, and even stories that I have lined up that I still want to read, how much of the author is they put themselves in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be curious. We didn't ask um, just last week. Duncan the Dragon finds his fire.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be like, well, how much of you did you put into Duncan? You know,
Yeah.
be like, we got to next time Lynn comes is on is we have a discussion with her. We have to ask her, do you see yourself in Duncan? Did you, was there something in a fire in your life that you needed to find? Is it really your story from when you were a little kid and you wanted to go to Disneyland? um, but I wonder about, we have author friends. So Art hasn't been on in a little while, but he writes dark fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talked about putting something out there that expresses himself. I mean, that's really what we talked about with Art, was this is a way to express yourself just in a way that's different from other people. Getting into the realm of dark fantasy and horror, being able to address some of the um, some of the what's the word I'm looking for, less not so glamorous
Yeah.
parts of stories, but that also smack of harsh reality. That's a way to express, this is how I experience things. So how much of that is you're actually putting yourself into this book? Not maybe you're feeding your emotions into it, you're feeding your experiences into it, you're building your characters around your own personality or counterpoints to your own personality, and that's the world. That's how you're building the world that you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to do an analysis, to go through and say, if they take a personality test and then take that personality test from the perspective of each character.
Yeah.
Say, okay, how would Tawara answer each of these questions, and what's her personality? What would Captain Ethrin do? What would Jesus do? No, what would each of these characters do? How would they react? How would they respond? What are a lot of the personality test is, do you prefer X or Y? Would you do A or B? And it would be interesting to see it would be interesting to see, because we co-author things.
Mm-hmm.
You do it for Athandra, I do it for Athandra. You do it for Tawara, I do it for Tawara.
Yeah.
And then do we see our characters the same way? do we see the same personality come out? And if not, what does that say?
Yeah. About us individually.
Or just, are people going to read and be like, these characters are bipolar? Or it seems like they have split personalities. There's more than one of them. Well, there's a reason for that.
Hopefully not. Hopefully we're
Yeah.
fairly consistent.
We've tried to be. We've tried to talk through, especially from a major decision perspective, or even reactionary things. When we've read through and been like, well, would they really react like that? Even if they would react in a similar fashion, are those the words are those the words he or she would use in this context? So, I think we've tried to make it work out, make it seem nobody has a split personality.
Well, and as we sit here and write, there's a lot of times where one of us will stop the other and be like, I don't think that's...
Yeah, we've done that multiple times, a lot of times in the writing. Yeah. But there again, is that us in the writing or the character? That's where how much of me is saying, well, I don't think they would do that, and really it's part of me in the back of my mind that, part of my personality that is being expressed through this character. And I can't disassociate and be like, no, this character could do that. Whereas because I'm putting part of me into it, I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, there's also how much of it is how do you want the character to be, as opposed to how do I want the character to be.
Yeah. Well, and the question with that is, well, why?
Yeah.
If you want character A to be a certain way, and I want that same character to be a certain way, why do we want them to be? Why do we each individually want that character to align to our perception of them? And then is that because we see a particular personality in the character, or because we're injecting a part of our personality into that character?
Yeah. Or injecting the personality of someone we like or don't like.
Yeah. Well, and that's another question is, when you're writing a character and then you're like, well, I'm going to write this other character over here, and this person would be kind of like Tom. and Tom's an idiot. So, you know. So how would I write them as this idiot? I'll just think of Tom every time I write that. What would Tom do? There's the idiot. So the other piece of that then is, so how much do you put yourself in? How much of your personality is in there? How much of your personal experiences are in your writing? The opposite of that is, how much is there a fear of putting too much of yourself in?
Yeah. How much do you omit?
Yeah. How much do you intentionally go, okay, I'm typing along. It's me typing. That's how fast I type, in case you're wondering. Bam, done. If only, right?
Yeah.
You're typing along and then you go, oh, wait a minute. That's a little too close to home. And so backspace, 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 you go, let's see, what's a different direction they could go in? Or maybe you're writing, just writing in a particular scene would work really well with an experience, that when you start getting into that experience and you go, whoa, wait a second. This experience is too close to something I've experienced for real. And I can't write this into this book.
Yeah. I don't think I've come across that yet.
Yeah.
Not that I won't, not that we won't.
Yeah.
But
I wonder from a writing perspective in general, are there things, if you are a writer, are there things you come across where you say, I can't write this? And does that make you a better or a worse author?
Mm-hmm.
Does it improve or degrade your writing? I mean, I could see both sides of the coin. Of one, it could make it better because you need something parallel. You might need something parallel in order to carry the scene or carry the character forward, but it's a little too close to home what you initially thought of. And so you have to write something that's maybe parallel to that. And because you don't want to inject too much of your own experience in, you have to try to come up with something that still is an effective storytelling tool and carries the same level of emotion, conflict, development, without it being the experience that you directly relate to.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of that, if you can't write those experiences to which you directly relate, does that take away from your ability to really share things effectively? Does it take away, there's a wall in your writing that you can never cross? There's a barrier that you can never cross. Not that, there's some things, there are obviously topics, that apply to certain stories that don't apply to others.
Yeah.
So it depends on the nature of your story and who your demographic is that you're targeting and everything like that. Taking all of that out of the equation and just saying, looking at it purely from a storytelling perspective. If there are lines subjects you can't broach, lines you can't cross, not because of something because of your own personal experience, what does that do to you as a writer? Again, not of, well, I don't want to write about specific topics.
Mm-hmm.
It's like cozy mystery. Cozy mysteries are almost exclusively about murder.
Yeah.
Murder, She Wrote, phenomenally successful and popular. And it's literally murder.
Yeah.
She wrote. Every episode is about somebody getting murdered.
Yeah. But they don't cross the line into here's how they were murdered and how gruesome it was or whatever.
Yeah. They don't get into all of the gory detail. And it's like, nope, we don't cross that line, not because we're afraid to, but the genre we write in, it's all 100% about murder. We got to understand for, to an extent. Some of them go a little aren't realistic, but you got to understand forensics and some personality things and, people intelligence levels and clues and how to write mystery and all this stuff without giving all the gory details because it doesn't fit the genre.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't go write like Kiss the Girls, where it's like that series. Those books are like you get all the gory details of murder and bloodshed and everything. How murders take place because you're the forensic detective going through all the clues. And so you get all of the clues that the detective gets because it's centered around the harsh reality of investigating murders. Whereas Angela Lansbury in the TV series, she had to have seen, the character that she played had to have seen all the gory details. How traumatic was that person? How long did that series run?
I don't know, many years.
How many hundreds of murders was she privy to and like saw all the, we didn't see them on screen. And if you read read Murder, She Wrote, read stories, read these different, you don't see all the details, but that character would have seen all the details. How traumatic, how traumatized are they? Even sleep at night? Or are they just totally, maybe she was so good at what she did because totally desensitized.
Yeah.
Just like, man, another murder. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that person's head just fell down the stairs. That was interesting. So yeah, all that circling all that big tangent back around to what we were talking about of outside of the case of it doesn't fit your genre, it doesn't fit the story type, it doesn't fit the demographic to which you're targeting, you're writing to. If it's for your own personal apprehension, that there are lines you don't cross, or pieces of stories that you'll try to omit because they hit too close to home, what does that do to your writing?
I think it could be a hindrance or a boon. If it gets to a point where it's stopping your story and you don't know how to get around it, then it's obviously a hindrance. But it can make you a better writer by coming up with an alternate, finding a way to make an alternate work and get you to the same place in the end.
Yeah. But look at so thinking about that, I'm thinking of I don't know if there's a book on it, but the movie Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell and Emma Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
So Emma Thompson is the author, and she's writing the life of the character that Will Ferrell plays. And then it gets to the end, and she writes what was his name? Howard.
I don't
Crick.
remember.
His last name is Crick, but I can't remember his first name. It just left my brain. Something Crick and she couldn't write, was dead. Harold. I was close. So yeah, she couldn't write. Harold Crick was, and then she had to come up with. She finally is able to write the story, and then other people read the story and they're like, "It's good. It's good. It's not great, but it's good."
Mm-hmm.
Not that if you met Harold Crick, if you're writing a story and you realize, wow, the story that I'm writing is actually being played out in real time. And if I write Harold Crick is dead, the person that is actually lives right over there will be dead. You know, maybe I should write an alternate ending. Outside of that, like that's the experience that Emma Thompson's character had of that Dustin Hoffman reads her book and then is like, it's good. It's but well, Dustin Hoffman during the movie, and if you haven't seen it, sorry, it's been out for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen it, you should still watch. I really like it. I think it's a great.
Oh yeah, it's a good movie.
Um, Dustin Hoffman reads Emma Thompson's book, and then he's like, he knows Harold. Harold has come to him. He's trying to figure out how he's hearing the voice of someone narrating his life, and then they discover who the author is, and then um, Dustin Hoffman is like, "Sorry, Harold, you're in a tragedy. Every story she writes, the people die. It's always a tragedy." And he's like, "I don't want to be in a tragedy, kind of. I don't want to wear a pirate shirt, or I don't want to be a pirate." Um, but Dustin Hoffman reads it, and then he's like, "Harold, you have to die. You have to." He's like, "This is her. This story is like her magnum opus. This will be like all everything she's written. This will be the best. This will be the capstone of all of the projects that she's done and all the writing that she's done. So you have to die because she's narrating you. And in order for this to be great, to be the magnum opus, you have to die." But then, she changes the ending and then has Dustin Hoffman read it. And again, he's like, "It's good. It's good. It's not great." And you could see the disappointment.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he's not really torn between whether Harold should die or not. He's just like, "Hey, that's the story. Sorry, you have to die." you know? But for her, it's because Harold is a real person in this case, and somehow, stranger than fiction, she's narrating him. She's like, "I can't kill him. I can't write Harold Crick was dead after the incident that happens." So again, from what you were saying, you can come up with a way to write around whatever it is that you can't put into your writing, and maybe you'll be like, "Yes, that's great. Like this is amazing. Everything flows, and it's a great way to do it, and I became a better writer because of it." Or you might read it and go, "That's good. It's not great, but it's good."
Yeah.
You know?
We have kind of an out with that, because if there's something that you can't write, maybe I can,
Yeah.
or the other way around.
Yeah.
We haven't really come across that yet, but
I don't foresee anything like that.
no, I don't
coming up
either.
at the moment. But
In the type of writing we do, we're not faced with a lot of those existential issues,
yeah.
but it could happen.
But I mean, it doesn't. I keep talking about this. My mind kind of goes toward maybe it's a death or a tragedy or a loss or something that happened, but it may not be that. It might be maybe you had like some out of body super religious experience, super spiritual experience. Maybe you fell so deeply in love with someone, and you just, there's no way you can cross that line to truly express it. You're afraid of what would happen if I really expressed the depth of those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even exploring that even though they're positive feelings, exploring those depths of your own emotions. And it doesn't always have to be emotion, but I think most of what we're talking about would probably tie back to some type of emotion, an emotional block that keeps you from being able to write and tell a story down a particular path. So, I would ask the question, if you are a writer, and, I'm asking a question of me, of you,
Mm-hmm.
as writers, what can we do to explore those paths that we might be afraid of exploring? Not because they're down some taboo thing that we don't like, um, but specifically those paths that do make up the telling of real life, or the telling of this will add another layer of depth, emotion, tragedy, joy, remorse, uh, salvation to whatever it is you're writing. But because it's so close to your own experience, you have a hard time putting it into even crossing crossing that line to where you're even willing to put it into words. How do you, as an author, approach that and say, you got to answer two questions? One, are you willing to attempt to cross that boundary and let whatever that emotion is, let it go into the story fully? And then two, if not, if you're not willing, well, I guess there's three questions. Two, if not, what can you do to make your writing good enough to where you can still convey the message without bearing your soul? And then three, even if you are willing to traverse that canyon or cross that bridge, um, what are how can you write those things in a way to where they actually realistically convey what it is you feel, what it is you've experienced, in a genuine way? So, because the other risk is you try to cross that bridge and now it comes across as rigid or stiff,
Mm-hmm.
or you know or not genuine. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that a lot of stuff about what do you put in, what can you, uh, what do you put in, what do you refrain from putting in?
And it all, it all goes to what can you do, and sometimes it's gonna be just good,
Yeah,
um, because you either can't or won't cross those boundaries. Um, but then again, it can go back to what we were talking about way back. Can it be a therapy for you
yeah,
to force yourself to make that writing? And is that good or not?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's some writing that's out there that like it'll go jump right off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes in reading in reading in reading some of the things that really dive off the cliff, I'm like, well, you jumped off that cliff and then, like, you built another cliff on your way down and jumped off that one, and then built another cliff ahead of you and jumped off that one on and it gets so far into the fall that for me at least, I lose connection. I think there are paths that people can go down writing that can be done to where you go, not that there's a problem with going deep into emotion, but that you're going so deep and, like, swirling and stirring the emotion, stirring to where it's like you get lost and you're like, what am I reading about? What is
Yeah,
this about again? I don't even remember what this is.
and I think one of the ways it needs to be, in order to be you need to be relatable to your audience.
Yes.
And so you have to generalize certain things because not everyone has been through you know, everything you've been through. You want to convey, you got to find that balance between conveying what you've felt, what you've experienced that you're wanting to put into it, and how much is actually relatable
Yeah.
to someone who hasn't experienced a certain thing.
Yeah. Well, and what you said, that these existential things, I'm like, well, it's Buddy the Elf. when the two guys, the two authors who are trying to come up with an idea for the children's book, and they get the other author on the phone, and the one guy's like, I read your story about, whatever, this one children's book, and he's like, it's so existential yet so accessible. And it was funny in the show and cheesy the way the way he's talking about it. I'm like, but that is really getting into those experiences like that. That's really what you want, is you want it to be existential, but it still has to be accessible.
Mm.
And I think that balance, where I see an imbalance, is sometimes people will make things really accessible and there's nothing existential about it. It's too, it doesn't go deep enough.
Mm.
And sometimes really light surface level stuff is fine, is good. You need that in whatever you're writing too. But it can't be all just that. The flip side of that, sometimes there's stuff that I've read where I'm like, yeah, very existential. So existential that, like, I got turned around and flipped upside down on my head, and by the end of it, I'm like, I don't know what this is talking about anymore.
Yeah.
Just, it didn't go over my head. It just, you got, you get so far in, and then I'm like, well, I need to go back and read the last half a page again, because I think it just said the same thing. It just kept saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. But I got so lost in it that I'm not really sure. Like, I wasn't really reading those words anymore. I think I was thinking about the grocery list.
Yeah.
So I think it really is. It can be, maybe going full existential for yourself can be very therapeutic. But if you're going to put it into writing, if you want to cross that bridge, maybe you do it in stages, where first you make it accessible, or first you make it existential, and then you try to get the balance to that. And you say, I have this really existential thing. How do I make this now? How do I turn this into something that is accessible and relatable? By having, like, I got to have some point of focus for it to where it can be relatable in real life. But maybe that's an approach to take to those existential things, those existential bridges that you have a hard time crossing, to where I'm going to put myself in this story. Yep. It's a story about, a dragon who goes out and decides he likes the taste of knights from a particular realm. They have a certain flavor to them, and they're the best. And I've never been a dragon. I've never eaten a knight.
Yeah.
But I still want to figure out how to put myself in that character, or measure out how much of myself do I not want in that character. If the dragon is the main character, how much of it is me, or how much of it is, from my perception, the opposite of me. and then how much of my own experiences, you know, this dragon has never been into a Walmart and tried to find the right ankle socks that have the right cushioning that you like to go to the gym in. But is there something related to that that I can, if I'm the one writing this story, that I can put into the dragon's perspective of whatever it is I'm experiences when I buy those socks? That's what the dragon experienced. Those same feelings, that same perspective, of why are they all the same? And where's this other? I used to get socks like this, and now I can't find them on this shelf. There's none over here. What's the relative perspective from that a dragon might experience?
Yeah.
Finding socks.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's finding the right knight.
Yeah.
Used to find them over here, and now they're out.
Now they've all gone over there. They all got this new armor. It's not the same. They changed their pikes, and now I can't clean my teeth with the pikes after I'm done. It's really frustrating. So, yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think I'd like to explore that with some of the authors, authors that we have on, of how much of this is you. Are there any parts of it that you can directly say, this is right out of my life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or how much of this is intentionally not you?
Yeah.
Also, when you wrote this character, they're not anything like you. Was that intentional?
Yeah. And maybe it's, they're not anything like how I present myself, but they're very much like me. They're just not like me that other people see.
Yeah.
They're like, totally. I know people that from a public perspective, like the view, not that it's a bad thing, but the person that you see out in the world, I'm like, that's not them. Mm. You get to know them. You're like, that's not them at all. That's their public face, which is fine. That's just the face of, this is who I want. This is who I want to be out in the world. But that's not them. That's not the real person. Yeah, I wonder how much of that falls into people's writings. How much of that falls in with our writing?
I'm sure. I know it does.
Yeah. We should definitely do some personality tests, though, from our characters' perspectives. We do some role playing and see what kind of personality, what differences we come up with between the two of us for the different characters. And then if there's something from a personality perspective, some commonality that we come up with, maybe it'll help.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see. Also, we got to remember to ask other people, have you ever taken personality tests? Maybe we should actually do that for in like the Writers Guild.
Yeah.
Be like, we're going to do an experiment. We brought these personality tests. Pick the main character that you're writing right now. Answer all the questions from their perspective.
And see what kind of personality they come up with. And does that jive with what you were trying to write?
Yeah. If you're like, no, they're not this way at all. Like, well, are you writing them? If you want them to be a different way, and maybe we do that, and we're like, we already wrote book 1 and we got the personality wrong. I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to write any doctoral thesis about our books.
No, probably not.
So maybe someday be like, this is a great study in whatever. Well, maybe when we do that, we can come back on. Who knows? I'm not going to promise anything. Someday. Maybe we'll do that someday, and then we'll share it on here of what we came up with.
Yeah.
If we do, we'll share our results and see how it goes. Well, any final thoughts from your side, Jared?
No, I think it's interesting, and I actually am really interested in doing studies now.
Yeah.
but taking a few tests and seeing where they show up. But
Yeah, if you are a writer, just can't say this from experience at all, but maybe try that. Take a hard look at your characters. So one, take some tests, take some tests to see where do your characters' personalities, what you think they're doing, align with what you want them to do, or the person how their personalities are coming out. Does it align with how you want their personalities to come out? Maybe do some personality studying and see, and then take a look at yourself and see what pieces of you do you want, what pieces do you want to avoid, and between those two things, are there some things you should work on and push yourself to improve your ability as an author, one direction or the other, to say, I'm putting too much of myself in here. I need to figure out how to not put myself in here so much. And in order to do that, how does my writing need to improve? Or I'm not putting enough of myself. There are some bridges I need to cross that I need to stop being afraid of crossing. And then figure out how to put them in there. And in both perspectives, I think in either perspective, I think your writing will improve, and maybe it'll be one less visit with a psychiatrist. Well, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate everybody listening along. Hopefully have some good topics coming up through 2025. We're reaching out to different authors and creators. Hopefully have them on, and we'll be going to some cons later this year. We'll let you know when those are up and coming. Till next time, go in good spirits. Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.